Government has amended the Employment Act, effectively bringing to an end casualization of labor and unjustified termination of contracts, among other issues. What is the impact of this law on the labor market and on business in the country? Can the employers be policed effectively, considering that many other laws have been passed, but workers still suffer discrimination? You're watching Sunday Interview, and my guest this evening is Mr. Fackson Shamenda, the Minister of Labor. Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I want you to begin by explaining what you're doing to address concerns around the truck drivers, or should I say local fuel transporters, whose strike action almost brought the economy to its knees in the past 2 days. This is the second time that this is happening in less than 2 months.
Oh, thank you very much. First, I would like to thank you for inviting me on this program to clarify a few issues and probably to share with the public a number of issues pertaining to labor. On the tanker drivers, I think the issue is we have a new union which has just been registered, I think, a year ago, which we are trying to facilitate as the Ministry of Labor to see if we can provide the necessary capacity building for the leaders. Because they were mixing issues which have, the tanker drivers are employed by the transporters. Then the transporters have got issues, they have got contracts with the oil companies. And then the oil company, there are certain regulations which they have got to follow before awarding any contract. So the issues which were mixed up were that the tanker drivers, they've got issues anyway, they've got genuine complaints which they have, which are pertaining to their terms of employment. But they mix them up with the demands which the transporters are making to the ERB and to the oil companies. So when you mix up the two, then you lose the focus. So what we did was we had to separate the two. When we met with the Minister of Energy, and myself, we realized that these are two separate issues. So the demands which were being made by the drivers, those we shall sit down with them. We have advised them the right channel to follow. They need to sit down with their union, make those proposals to the organizers, to the organized transporters. They've got an association also. So the unions should negotiate with their association. Then when they have a dispute, that is the time they can say, we are going to government, or specifically we are going to the Ministry of Labor, so that we can be able to resolve those issues. So these are the issues which we were able to iron out yesterday. So the transporters are discussing issues pertaining to contracts, the hours of travel, because they were complaining that foreign transporters are able to travel even during the night. But the local transporters are banned from that. So they are saying some of the transporters don't have business because of some other reason, so which they need to discuss with the ERB and the Ministry of Energy.
And what are the concerns for the drivers, really?
The concerns,
poor working conditions.
Yeah, the same usual.
What does it mean when we talk about
the
poor
same usual arrangement, where particularly in the private sector, where you have got this transporter, maybe has got 10 trucks. The conditions of service, obviously, in some cases, because they are not regulated per se. So it is very difficult to pay the salaries which is expected by these drivers. But I would like even to state here that this thing even started when the Honorable Silia visited the Tazama depot. When she went there, she found that these tanker drivers are working under very difficult conditions. The sanitation, when they have parked the vehicles and other things. In fact, the first concern was raised by her.
So where have you been? You're the Minister of Labor.
We can't police these workers if they don't bring this to the attention of the ministry. It is very difficult. We can't be everywhere. And as you are aware, we have said from time to time that the best labor inspectors we have are the employees themselves. They are supposed to bring this to the attention of our labor officers. They are supposed to have a union which is supposed to negotiate with their respective employers. If then it fails, that is the only time we can be able to intervene. The working conditions here, if we are to send an inspector, they will find one or two things that we can say it's a bad labor practice, because we can't be everywhere. In a lot of companies, when you go there, it is up to the employees themselves to make sure that they bring to the attention of either the union if they are unionized, or to our ministry if they are not unionized. Because of the same issue which you are talking about, that's why we're the first one probably on the continent. I don't know about the other outside. Even in my other life, when I used to be in charge of the global unions, I've never come across any country where you have a hotline, which we are introducing probably before the end of this month or next month, where we'll have an employee, we shall have an hotline which can be accessed by any person from anywhere in the country without necessarily even revealing their identity, to complain to one of our officers, to say this. They ring the call center and say employer and so has got these problems and things. It can be ZNBC. There can be some issues ranging from sexual harassment and paid leave. They can be able to pick up a phone and ring one of our officers. Then we can be able to alert one of our officers. If it is in Chirilabombwe, we alert our officer in Chirilabombwe. Or where we don't have a labor officer, we should be able to make arrangements to have a labor officer to get there. So I would like to appeal to the workers themselves that they are the best labor inspectors. It is like a thief. If a thief comes into your house, it's the policeman who will not guess that somebody is stolen from you. It is for you to report to the
You have these employed labor inspectors. What do they do? Do they sit in their offices and wait for somebody to alert them? Do they have a scheduled timetable where they have to visit companies?
Well, occasionally they have the scheduled program. It's not necessarily to look for faults, to make sure in a lot of cases to go to companies, help them, explain to them about certain pieces of legislation which we have, look at the working environment and things like that. Sometimes they act on a tip. Sometimes they make normal inspections like any other inspector.
The fact that these people have done tours twice, probably a month, I think, it doesn't show that you are not listening to them.
Oh, the problem.
These concerns were raised even last time. Of course, there was a rider to the other strike by virtue of the fact that somebody had been shot. But the conditions of service were also raised even that time. You did not bother to listen.
The issue was not the conditions of service in this matter. The conditions of service are supposed to be looked at between the union itself, bring to the attention of the association so that they can negotiate. The issue which is at hand, which the drivers are complaining about, in fact, they are complaining on behalf of the transporters. That's why we suspected that probably some of the transporters were using them. That's why if you read on the report, one of the vice president of the transporters union was saying there could be some invisible hand of some people who were resisting to go back to work even after it had been explained to them. So they are mixing up the two things, because they are saying if the transporters do not get business, then we are not going out to deliver. As a result, we are not being paid. That has nothing to do with the Ministry of Labour. It has nothing to do with the conditions of service. It has got something to do with the transporter to get business so that he can be able to facilitate the transportation of this driver from point A to point B. So those are the issues.
So clearly this strike was illegal.
Oh, very much illegal. And to some extent, anyway, to some extent we can say it was more of communication breakdown, I would say. That's what we have learned, and that's what I've indicated, that this should be the last strike where we should be able to take action in the future if anything happens. But again, these are transporters, these are drivers who are employed by the transporters. So if they go on strike, it is up to the transporter to discipline the driver. But again, if nothing is happening, if there is collusion between the driver and the transporter, now it is up now to the oil companies to make sure that they are causing confusion for the oil companies maybe to terminate contract from this transporter. So it is a long chain. That's why it has become a little bit complicated, and that's why we are addressing the issue to see that this does not happen again.
Fuel is very sensitive.
Oh, exactly, very, very, very.
Should this happen again, then
we shall have to look for other measures on how to deal with it.
Deal with the union, deal with the transporters?
It's the chain. Deal with the union and the transporters. But mainly, as I've said, if there is a strike here, it is not the responsibility of government. It is for management to make sure that you guys go to work, isn't it? So it is the responsibility of the transporters to make sure that the people whom they have employed, whom they have a contract with, contract of employment, they go to work. And it is the responsibility of the transporter who has got a contract with the oil companies to make sure that they deliver. So between these two, we shall have to hold one of them accountable for what happens if there is this stoppage. The oil companies should hold the transporters accountable, because they don't care how the fuel moves from point A to point B as long as it is delivered. So the transporter also has got to make sure, doesn't matter who drives that tanker, but to have a responsible, but to some extent to make sure that the person who is driving that dangerous, that those are inflammable stuff. So it is important to have somebody who is very happy on the road, so that you will be able to transport the goods safely. So these are the issues which we are doing.
Now, on the 26th of November last year, President Lungu signed into law the amendments to the Employment Act. Generally, how will this new piece of legislation strengthen labor administration in Zambia?
What it does is that, first is we have got a program with the International Labour Organization, which we had, which is a decent work agenda. What we're looking at is people who are working. That is the concern of this government. If you look at the PF manifesto, we said immediately we get into government, we shall be able to make sure that we improve and we protect the interest of the workers. We are going to deal with casualization. We are going to do the labor law reforms so that we are able to provide a good working, decent environment for the workers. So all we have done is to, one, Zambia ratified Convention 156, which deals with the protection of, against unjustified dismissals. In this convention, which is by the ILO, an international covenant, which was ratified by Zambia, if I'm not mistaken, 1997, it says no employee shall be dismissed without being given any reasons. The employers are arguing, okay, in that case, an employee also should give reasons, but it is not in the convention. The logic behind it is, if you look at the Bill of Rights, the Universal Declaration of the Bill of Rights, it states that employment is a right, which means not necessarily that government should move with the jobs in the pockets. It means that once you should move the jobs in the pockets and provide jobs. What it means is that work is a right, in the sense that if you are engaged in any work, life is a right. You are entitled to life. It means it's not that the government has got to go and produce children. It means that once there is a child, that person has got to be, that life has got to be protected. So if you are in employment, it is the responsibility of government to make provisions to make sure that because that employment is a right, you need to be protected. It's just like the life. You can lose your life because of there's an accident and other things. So in the similar cases, unless because of certain circumstances, because you are indisciplined or because of the employment, the operations of the company, there's been some changes and other things, because of certain factors, that is the only time you can be able to lose your employment, because it is a right. So we said, any employer, before you terminate a contract or before you terminate the job of a person who is working for you, even on permanent, you are supposed to give them reasons. The other side.
So this is basically meant to protect the person's right to employment.
Exactly. But on the other side, you can't say the employee has got to give reasons for why maybe they are looking for greener pastures, or because there's been some other.
So the law favors them.
Not necessarily, because the issue is slavery was abolished a long time ago, and forced labor is not allowed globally. So the employee has got a right to choose where to work. In the Constitution, it stipulates, even in the Bill of Rights, it states that a person shall be free to choose what type of job to do. So if you are tired here, Grevazio, as a journalist, and you want to become a pilot, you should say, well, I'm quitting. You go back to school and you go to train as a pilot, because you have got that freedom. A human being has been born free. That's what the Bill of Rights says. So with the employer, because it's not the privilege, you are not privileged to work. It is a right to work, because the employer is given a license and these facilities because they've got to provide a service. And providing a service to community, they've got to employ people.
Unjustified termination of contracts and employment. This is prevalent with government.
Well,
under the phrase national interest, a lot of people have been laid off. No reasons given, just national interest.
National interest, those are security reasons. So in
public interest?
Public interest, those usually they are they apply in government for people who deal with because you sign.
So you've carefully protected government from this
because of the nature of business of government. You have got to be running the institutions of government is something which needs to be protected. That's why when you are employed, most civil servants, depending on the type of jobs that you are doing, usually doesn't apply to junior persons or something. It is persons who have got certain responsibilities in government, who have sworn an oath of secrecy in whatever you are doing. There are certain things you are bound by. But then if it is discovered that you are not working in conformity with the values for which you were employed, then you can be retired in public interest. No reasons has got to be given for security reasons.
So public interest, national interest, this is not the same.
No, it is. Well, it could not be the same, but national interest and public interest to some extent, they are so a matter of semantics. Except one, you lose your benefits. The other one, you can be able to access your benefits. But as per the termination of the contract or for termination of employment, it is nearly the same.
Is that phrase subject to abuse by
government? Well, it depends. Human beings, in a lot of cases, being what they are, in some cases it can be abused if it is in the wrong hands. That's why you need to have a responsible government like ours, where we are able to put in place laws which are protecting the citizens of this country.
What is more pronounced in this amendment is the issue of casualization. What does that mean? This new law has banned casualization. What exactly are we talking about?
What we're talking about is we realized as government, in fact, even before we came into government, that's why in our manifesto, the first statement under Labour is that PF in government, we shall make sure that we regulate casualization. And unfortunately, it's taken so long because of consultations. You know, there is, in the Ministry of Labour, there is a lot of consultation which goes into this with the tripartite arrangement, the employers, the workers' organization, and not only the tripartite arrangement, there are other stakeholders outside there because it involves business and the other people of the community, other people in the community. So it took us long. But the issue is we recognize this when we are not even in government, that the casuals are not protected. They are not entitled to certain benefits which people who are on permanent and pensionable are entitled to, including, in some cases, people who are working on contract. A casual is like a person who is not secure. He does a job without any protection. A casual, by any definition, if you look at a casual is something, we are not serious. We're just discussing something casual. Well, never mind and things. If you've got a casual relationship, it's casual. It's not your true friend. You know, that man, well, is a colleague. It's casual. But if it's your true friend, they will depend on you. If they are in problems wherever they are, they will be able to know, I've got X whom I can depend on. So all we are saying is, for any job which is of a permanent nature, a job of any business concerned, which will go on until probably the company runs bankrupt or whatever happens to it. If that job is secure, the person who is employed in that job should be permanent, so that that job is the person can be able to plan. They will know. That's why you have retirement age. Retirement age is in the sense is there in the sense that there is pension attached to it, so that if you know the retirement age as it is now, it is 60, and you start work at the age of 25, you know that you have a working life of 35 years. So during the 35 years, you'll be able to plan. For example, if you start work here at the age of 25, you know you have 35 years to go, and you can be able to access mortgage. And mortgage on the average is supposed to be 25 years repayment period. You know, by the time you are 55, you will have repaid of your mortgage. Then probably you can use your house and get another mortgage, so that by the time you'll be retiring in 5 years time, you will not be destitute like what it is at the moment. A lot of people are retiring, even very senior civil servants who have retired, they're destitute. So we are trying to make sure that we protect the interest of the worker when they are working, and they've contributed so much to the development of their various companies, the development of the country. They should be able to be enjoying the type of life similar to what they were enjoying when they were
some level of decency.
Exactly.
Would say. But in introducing some limitations, you've spoken to having this limited to genuine temporary work.
Yeah.
What do you define as genuine temporary work?
Genuine temporary work, it is like you are on leave, or you are on sick leave or something. Somebody's got, you want this thing to be done. If it can't be arranged in-house for somebody to do it because you are on leave for a long period and you would like an anchor, which you can't find any skill around here, then you can get somebody on a temporary basis to come and sit in for you. So if you have a secretary who has gone on maternity leave, that is genuine temporary work. Somebody is coming to sit in for somebody.
There's an argument on the other side when it comes to casualization that in a labor surplus economy like Zambia, the debate is not around what we're talking about, guaranteed benefits and social security and stuff. The debate is on people having a regular income to meet their needs.
Casual work is not, you are not guaranteed of a regular income. You can come in the morning, when you knock off in the afternoon, you may not be required in the following morning.
Short contracts, people are guaranteed they can get regular income for 3 months, 4 months.
What do you do after that? You can't plan. Short contract. If we don't mix...
You can tally that to the labor surplus that we have in the country, that each one wants to have a go at this small, there's few places of employment that are available.
So you want to be doing what? Sharing jobs. You don't want a permanent job here. You want to work here for 3 months, and then somebody else comes in for 3 months, and there is no order whatsoever. There is no job security. Productivity is very low. So what we should be thinking of job creation. This is why the PF government, when we came in, we have seen this robust infrastructure development, which has got a spillover. It is not only those people who are working on the roads as you're going, you people where the infrastructure is being paved up, people are doing a lot of business and things. It is what we have got to look at is to create jobs, not to have jobs which are not quality jobs. There is low productivity. Usually, and when you are talking about casuals, in a lot of cases, it is unskilled labor. You are not going to get it. This person, he comes in, he rents a house for 2 months, then he moves out of the house because he's not in employment. Let's be serious. You need jobs which are permanent. You need people to know that today I'll be doing this, the following day this is what I'm going to do. At the age of 55 or 60, I should be able to retire. I will have planned for my life. I'll know if I'm in this employment, I can be able to plan for my children. Not that for 3 months you are able to take your child to this school, then after 3 months you can't send your child to school, you have got no food on your table, you can't plan.
Does this in any way push the cost of business upwards?
Not at all. It is like, you see, it's A lot of people are saying then in this case we are going to employ a few people and other things. I don't agree.
Definitely be scared of government taking them to court and probably even people they employ taking them to court.
Then
so
you are not
they'll employ less people.
Then you are not a serious.
They do not have the capacity.
Then you are not a serious businessman. You see, I've been around doing industrial relations for 4/5 of my life, right? And I've never gone to any country where they say you employ so many people because you want to create employment. You employ people because you need to employ the numbers that you have. And in a lot of companies where you have overemployed, there is inefficiency because you find the files here, they say it is X who is supposed to be doing this, it is Y who is supposed to be doing that. So in that case, you have got a problem. Any organized person you employ, that's why there is an establishment. You say this one will be doing this and you've got a job description. So you don't employ people for the luxury of it, no. So anybody will be lying to you if you say because you do this, because you have put this law, then it will reduce labor. Not at all. Because you only employ people. Unless if you are going into mechanization, yes. But you need to have the resources also to go into mechanization. You need experts. But you cannot tell a company to say, ZNBC, we have employed so many journalists just because we want to provide employment. No. You employ people, particularly in the private sectors. They say that's why even in the government now there is performance-based assessment before one is promoted or before one is kept into that employment or before one is employed. There should be a need to employ somebody, or else it causes all these inefficiencies. There is nowhere in the world where people employ people for the sake of employing them. It's not possible.
Some experts will argue that banning casualization it will also affect other people in formal employment too. For instance, want to use casual jobs to reduce the search costs, what they call search costs of employees themselves, as they change between permanent jobs. While you're looking for another job, you would want to do some short-time job as a safe landing measure.
You see, it is the employer who employs people in casual. It is not the employee who wants to be employed as a casual. So if you are looking for something else, you can apply for a job. You can be employed on contract. That's why in the law it provides there is a short-term contract and fixed-term contract. Fixed short-term contract is between 6 months and 12 months. 12 months to 1 year, 1 year to 2 years, or 2 years to 3 years, those should be fixed-term contracts. So those people who are not decided, they can enter at that level. Then once they are decided, then say, well, when the 2 years expires, then they will tell the employer, now I would like to stay, or they will just stay on. People should be organized.
One other argument that comes up is that of the mines. For instance, mines will subcontract their jobs to contractors, and contractors will hire people based on that particular period of the contract, which means probably they have a contract 2 months, 3 months. In that area, then the issue of casualization still persists.
No, those are going to say casualization is where it is defined in the law. Casualization is a job which is usually in terms, it is for a period that you pay, usually they are paid at the end of the day. Although there is some arrangement, sometimes you can be paid at the end of the week. Or if this casual job is going on for a month or so, maybe you can pay them for at the end of each month. But if you have a project, for example, and the project is running for 3 years, then you employ somebody, you give them a contract for 3 years, so that they know that after 3 years, I will have accumulated so much, you will have contributed so much to NAPSA and other things. During that period, you'll be able to say, well, in the 3rd year, because I have 1 year to go or 3 months to go, you start looking for other jobs, or if possible, if you think you'll have to improve on your skills, for the 3 years, you'll have gone to a night school, or you have done correspondence or whatever, then you'll be able to say, these 3 years you'll make a saving, then you'll be able to go to do something else. So it brings sanity in the society, so that people will be able to be secure, so that they can be able to plan.
So big conglomerates, companies can easily escape this law by subcontracting, hiring contractors. who in turn also hire employees, and you don't have to employ people on a permanent basis.
Well, if the contract you have is on a permanent nature, the law says you should be permanent. If the contractor is got,
you can easily change contractors. Get a contractor for 3 months, another contractor for 3 months. Yeah, run away from the issue of employing people on a permanent basis.
Is it possible? Where will you get contractor A comes here, contractor B comes to do this? They will mess up. There is an arrangement of machinery. There is big equipment. Like if you are talking about the mines. Then what will that? There will be no contractor who will get into contract with the mines if he knows that after 3 years, then he will be redundant because he has got the equipment. He has got to invest in that equipment. So it has got to be on a permanent arrangement.
Now that this, you've sort of criminalized the issue of engaging workers on casual basis. What are the consequences of people that will not abide by this law?
Well, the first. If you contravene the first time, there is a penalty which is attached to it. The second, the penalty is much higher. For big companies who may have the money so that they can afford to be paying penalties and find it cheaper to continue with the casualization, you can be imprisoned.
The policing of these laws, one concern about that is that these laws, good laws we have, they cannot be effective.
Well, if you see, rights should be inborn. This is what we are trying to educate the Zambians. We've got your rights. Even children, if you are in Europe or some other, in the Western world, if you leave your child on their own, who is underage, they will ring the police and then they will pick up the parents at the disco if they have left, they are negligent. So even in this case, what we are saying is we need to educate the people. We need to educate the workers. The unions are familiar with the laws so that they can protect their members. That's why we have important institutions like the trade unions to protect their members. That's why we have labor offices. Those who are not unionized, they can be able to our labor offices. That's why we are appearing on the Sunday interview to explain to the workers that now there is no casualization. If you think you are in a job which is of a permanent nature, then you should be considered for permanent employment.
People will fear to speak out because they probably lose their job. They will lose even the small little income that they get. We've seen this in where you have the minimum wage issue, which is not fully implemented in a number of places.
That's why there is that law, protection against unjustified dismissals. If you dismiss the person because you have spoken out, it will come out. Even if you don't convince me, if that person goes to court, it will come out in court that you dismissed them because they spoke out. So they are checks and balances.
Do you agree that even the minimum wage has not been fully implemented?
Well, because of various reasons. Some people, they don't come out and to say I'm being underpaid. That's not the fault of the minister. That is not the fault of the ministry. That is not the fault of the government. But there are some genuine companies who are struggling, who have to ask their workers to say, okay, for this period, and they've explained, some of them, they've come to the ministry to say, our business is doing very bad. This is our business plan. For this period, maybe can we have a waiver, then we can pay this, and then as we grow, we should be able to pay the minimum wage. But all the companies that we know who are not paying the minimum wage, when they can afford to pay, those, we have taken them to task. There is a law in place. But those who are, you see, the problem sometimes it is us, Zambians. We would rather be exploited. It is like sexual harassment. We have encouraged, and this is what we are trying to incorporate in one of the, as we are revising the labor laws, God willing, before the end of the next session, we shall have all these laws in place. If one is being sexually harassed by the boss and is scared, then the other one is harassed and he complains, and the other one is victimized, then that has an effect on the other one who has complained. So if all of us say this cannot be tolerated, then it will disappear. It depends on how we ourselves as individuals behave towards this.
So how much work do you have to do to convince the people, to convince the workers?
Well, the law now is in place that you see, if you can't convince the labor officer, if you feel you can convince the labor officer because of other things that you have put in place at your workplace, and you victimize somebody, obviously you won't lie, you won't cheat the judge. It will go to court. They can see between the lines that the reason why you dismissed X is because of this. The truth will always
How many
come out.
Zambians can go to court, Minister? You probably know that very few elite people know their rights. They can take the employer to court. We're talking about farm workers. We're talking about people in industries that are locked up at times, abused, paid salaries that are below the minimum wage. Talking about maids, domestic workers.
Domestic workers have unions. Those who are at the farms, we have got 2 unions in the agricultural sector. In the industries, we have got so many unions to protect them. And that's why, as I said earlier on, we are also putting up that hotline where this person, they don't need to review their name. They can say, we don't go to company so-and-so and carry out an inspection. We go there, then we carry out the formal inspection. We know what we are looking for. We don't just go and say, there is this. So we say, we look at the conditions of service, we inspect the factory and other things. But meanwhile, we know what somebody has complained about this, then we can be able to pick it up.
So when will this toll-free line come into effect?
Yeah, as I said, it is in fact long overdue, except there are some logistical problems. Before the end of the month, or definitely before the end of the equipment is there. We have trained people already, and I would like to thank Airtel Zambia. We've worked together. They are the ones who provided us with the equipment, and they provided with the training. It will be like the call center that you can find at Airtel or Zamtel or MTN. This will get into place. So those things we are talking about will be history.
You will have this hotline, and do you have the capacity, the numbers to deal with the problems? I know you'll probably be overwhelmed with the numbers of people that will call you in to complain.
Well, not really, no. Well, we've done the assessment. We just pick up a phone, speak to somebody, so-and-so. They record the complaint, and then they are able to get the right person to go and carry out the inspection.
One of the challenges that you've highlighted yourselves as a ministry is lack of inadequate staff and inadequate budget allocation.
Yeah. So when we shall have this skeleton staff at the headquarters, at the call center, so to say, then they will be able to pick up a phone. If it is in an industry where there is a union, they will pick up a phone, speak to the union, the union will do the work. And we have very strong unions here. That's why we had one unionist who became a president, because the unions are very strong here, and they are doing a commendable job.
One unionist who became a member of parliament and minister.
Oh yeah, sure. So we have got very strong unions here who are doing a very good job, and we are working with them to make sure that this scourge is dealt with.
Around the labor officers, there have been complaints of corruption from the people, that labor officers are called in some companies, and eventually they get to the company and they just leave, and the problem is not resolved.
Well, corruption, I wouldn't say no, because even in places like ZNBC, maybe you need to pay a journalist for you to write a good story about you. So it is everywhere. But those are not, you can't say the ministry is corrupt, no. There could be, I think it's 1 out of 100 or something of that sort. But there are processes. If the labor officer there is bribed, you can go to the union, obviously will take up the case. They will go to the principal labor officer, they will go to the assistant labor commissioner, they will go to the labor commissioner, they will go to the permanent secretary, they could come to the minister. You can't bribe all these guys. You need to have a lot of money to bribe everybody. So it is not there. But the thing is, in a lot of cases, the point is the law has been weak. Like in this case you are talking about people if you are working on contract, all they need to do is give you notice as with the previous law. All the employer needs to do is to give you notice. They don't need to give you reasons. So off you go. So as a result, what do you expect the labor officer to do? Because the law was weak. So we have strengthened the law, And in a lot of cases, what you have said, what I've discovered is, as you are saying, a lot of people are complaining that labor officers are compromised because of the same weak law. They take the case of, even myself in some cases, I was accused of being compromised. I'm being accused of being compromised in a lot of cases. There was the case of Intercontinental. There were workers who were dismissed. They came, there was a directive, you employ these people and things, but because there was no law which would compel the minister to direct anybody to re-employ them except the court. So there was very little that we can do. That's why at the moment we are saying Intercontinental, most of the unions now are not holding their functions at Intercontinental because of their attitudes towards workers. And I myself, as a Minister of Labour, said all the people who are having functions in collaboration with the Minister of Labour, we don't go to Intercontinental. So that's the only thing you can do.
That's the only thing you can do.
That's the only thing. Now, what we have done, that's why now the law has been amended. That's why the Industrial and Labour Relations Act very soon will be amended, where the government will have teeth to deal with those issues. The previous administrations never had they had an opportunity, but they never did that. So at the moment, this is the government of Edgar Jagwa Lungu is cleaning up all these things. So that's why you should give us another mandate, so that we clean up everything for the other people who might come after 30 years or so.
So how many institutions, besides Intercontinental, to mention it again, have you boycotted as a Minister of Labour?
Oh, well, no, that's, at the moment, that's the only one I can say. Yeah, because most of them, we are able to deal with them, we negotiate. They become reasonable. Even Intercontinental now, I think with the change of management, you should be able to see some sanity. And with these new laws, I think we should be...
You do not have a union?
There is a union, and that's where we are the problem. The whole union was the whole branch of the union there, where they were all dismissed. And then tried to take the case to court and things. There are all those other issues. But I think it is being cleaned up. I think Intercontinental very soon will be a good employer, because they would have learned. So we are, you see, Grevazio, the issue of labor relations are a little bit complicated. They are quite complicated because you are dealing with human beings. And human beings, from the time of Adam and Eve, they were able to misbehave in one or the other. So that's why you and me, and I would like to thank the media from time to time. I've been thanking them. They have been one of our very good labor inspectors, because by exposing some of these employers, no employer would like to have bad publicity. Because of that, they have been meant to behave themselves. So you are doing a good job.
Now, I want to take it back a bit to talk about the contracts. When we talk about contracts, what period are we looking at? 6 months, 12 months, 36 months?
What
Justified contracts where somebody can be employed and they thought be given a contract and not to be said to be casual workers.
You have a contract. There is a short-term contract which we are defining from 6 months to 12 months. That's short-term contract. Then we have got a contract, excuse me, from 1 year to 2 years. Then another one, 1 year to 3 years. 2-year contract, 3-year contract, and a 1 year, which is a short-term contract between 6 months and so there should be a reasonable a reason why you should employ somebody on that contract. And that's why in our regulation, because I'll be very soon I'll be providing the regulations to the amended employment to the amended act, which has given the minister the authority to provide the regulations on fixed-term contracts. So very soon I'll be regulating, I'll be defining how you can deal with somebody who has worked, who is on a short-term contract. After that short-term contract has come to an end.
After a long-term contract has come to an end, does the company have the right not to just renew, or they still have to give reasons?
They've still got to give reasons. And in my regulations, that's one thing we are discussing with my technocrats. It's either immediately after if it is a fixed-term contract, immediately it comes to an end, that person should be deemed to be, unless they are professionals like yourselves who would like to just be harassing merit stars and terrorizing others. And you want to work for ZNBC today, work for CNN tomorrow or something. You are a highly professional person and you would like to work on contract with your own consent. You can continue working on contract. But the thing is, if you employ somebody on fixed-term contract, what we are putting the regulations in place. Employ them for 2 years, and then you say, okay, no, your contract for one reason or another, without a justifiable reason, you don't renew the contract of that person. You say probably, oh, well, this job is not important or something. You will not be allowed to employ any other person in that job or in a similar type of job, the services to be performed by that person. You will have to go and collect the other one whose contract you are terminated, so that you put them on contract, so that we avoid a situation where if somebody is on a fixed term contract, after 2 years you don't renew the contract, and then you get another one for 2 years, you don't renew their contract.
In which case they might as well be on permanent.
Exactly.
You are indirectly trying to abolish contracts.
Well, contract will be there for, you see, for a job which is of a permanent nature, and you want to be on permanent, you want to be secure. Some people haven't even gotten married because they don't know whether they are going to be in employment tomorrow after the end of the contract. That's why you've got too many vehicles on the road, and there are very few people who are graduating and they are building houses. Because if you are on contract, you can't get a mortgage. Because if you go to the bank, you want to get a loan, they will ask you, where do you work? They will give you a loan commensurate with the period that you'll be, the income. They will calculate how much you'll get in the 3 years. So they will know for 3 years you'll be able to repay this amount. But if you are permanent, they will know you are permanent. You are going to continue working in that employment for the next 30 years. If you leave that employment and you join another company, that's why there is this law, you will also be in employment. So you'll be able to continue servicing your mortgage.
Employers will argue that people that are on contracts work harder, they have more commitment than the people that are pensionable.
It is not true. If you're on contract, in some cases, well, you know, well, I'm just here for 3 months, why should I break my back? It depends on who's supervised.
You probably work very hard knowing very well you need to fight to get your contract renewed.
It's not guaranteed. It really depends. You see, it is some people were putting an argument to say, well, it would be very difficult to get rid of somebody who is pensionable. You employ me as your human resource manager. I can make sure that you put in a disciplinary code and you put the performance appraisals at the end of this year or whatever. We are not protecting people who are undisciplined. We are not protecting people who are unproductive. That's why at the Ministry of Labour we have been advocating for establishing the productivity center so that you can be able to measure the productivity of individuals. Those who are not productive, you show them the door. But if you are so, you see, it is only a bad manager who will say, I can't dismiss X, it is very difficult because he's on permanent and pensionable. If you are a very good manager, that's why we've got highly trained directors of human resource, human resource managers, who should be able to measure your productivity. Even an office order, you can be able to measure their productivity. Even a watchman at the gate, you should be able to measure. There are scientific methods which you can use to measure somebody's productivity. If they are not being productive, you use the disciplinary code, you clear them off. Even if they went to court, you'll be able to prove to the court that this is why I got rid of this person. I employed him as a bricklayer. I expect a bricklayer to lay 200 blocks per day. Like this is the universal arrangement if you go by the productivity arrangement. But this guy lays only 50 blocks every day. I warned him the other day. I warned him after 2 months. He has failed. Then I've gotten rid of them. You can easily get rid of the person. So there should be a system.
Clearly, sitting and looking at this law, you've held it as a very good law. You've made so much progress. What challenges do you anticipate in executing this law?
The PF government will not make bad laws. All the laws that we make are very good laws. I would like to assure you that.
Challenges in executing this particular one?
I don't see any. I can't see any challenges.
Have you had any companies approaching you and saying this is going to be difficult for us?
Not at all. Not at all. Some people have complained, and there's one executive director for the Federation of Employers who has been associated with the ILO for a long time, and who is aware that there is this convention on the protection against the unjustified dismissals, who was saying, why should the workers be given the right and the employer has no right? I say, my friend, in the Bill of Rights. There is freedom of movement, freedom to choose where to work. And in the same Bill of Rights, it says employment is a right. So when you are employed, you should be assured of maintaining your job unless you mess up yourself.
Finally,
so
Minister, as we wind up, I want you to look at one issue: proliferation of unions. Is it a business or democracy or freedom of association?
Freedom of association, which has been abused. Well, we used to have the one union, one industry, until after the change of government in 1991, on the pretext of the freedom of association. But it is causing a headache. It is not good for the unions because in some cases they have become weak. It is not good for the workers, and it's not good for the company, for the industry. In some cases, you have 3 unions. They have mind, if they are fighting among themselves, as they say, when 2 elephants fight, it's the grass which suffers. You've got a big problem. So we're trying to engage our union leaders and the stakeholders to find a way on how we can bring sanity as far as the unions, the preparation of the unions is concerned. I am informed that FFTUZ and the ZCTU are discussing with a view of either working together closely or with a view of merging, which will be a good move.
And then there's Cotus on the scene.
And there's Cotus with the I don't even know how they were, how they came up. You see,
you're Minister of Labour, you probably should know how they came up.
Well, my friend, they've got a right to organize. I don't want to interfere in there, whether they are being sponsored by X or by Y.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, you've been watching Sunday Interview, and our guest this evening was the Minister of Labour, Mr. Fackson Shamenda. Join us next week at the same time. Pleasant viewing.